Madam Toastmaster, fellow members and most welcome guests. I realize that most of you probably don't know who I am. My name is Florian Bay. I'm an Advanced Communicator Bronze, Advanced Leader Bronze, been a member of Toastmaster for just over 2 years now, president of 2 clubs, area director, pretty active. And one thing I quite enjoy doing nowadays is actually to feed back what I've learned to other fellow Toastmaster clubs just like this one, which is why I was really thrilled to do this Better Speaker Speech series in this club. So the topic of tonight's speech is selecting your topic. It's a question that quite a lot of new speakers wonder how can I find topics for my speeches? What should I speak about? And what topics make great speeches? So let's get cracking, I have a lot to cover. So there are 2 main sources which one can use to cover speeches. And the first one is your own personal experiences. It could be your own interest. If you have a hobby, for example, in knitting and weaving, that can be a good subject for a speech. If you're interested in history, similarly, great speech subject there, depending on the period, and so on. The more interest you have, the more intense your interests are, the easier actually it might be for you to find speech subjects. So have a careful think about that. Second one, your own career. I'm sure we'll all have stories from our jobs. How we got the job in the first place, maybe, or about the silly, loud lady in an open space office that cannot help sharing her whole life on the phone, or the conversation that sometimes one has by the water cooler and the coffee machine. These can make great topics for humorous speeches. Next one is our family or ourselves. In our icebreaker speech, we are introducing ourselves to the club and talking about our own story, our own journey so far, and so on. But this, you can talk about yourself for pretty much any one of the 10 speeches in the CC manual. Or your family has shaped you, or your education has shaped you, or the city you've lived and the places you live have shaped you, or your own culture has shaped you. The list of subjects is endless. And finally, our own education. Maybe you've studied chemistry like I did at university, or perhaps engineering, or maybe something fancy like arts. These could be great subjects of speeches. Why did you study this in the first place? Did you have an interest in the subject? Did you were just simply curious? This could be great speech subject. And the second main source are reference material. What I mean by reference material is pretty obvious. Websites, books, magazines, newspapers. The list is endless. The list is absolutely endless. For example, you might read a nice article in the Evening Standard about the rush hour crush column, for example. This could make a great subject for a humorous speech. Or the latest column by a journalist, by, for example, Alistair Heath in City AM. Talk about that. If you're interested about the subject, make a speech out of it. If something ticked about it, make a speech out of it. One thing that you'll find is, if you have an interest, for example, in art or science or chemistry or history, you will very often mix your own personal experience of the subject with a lot of reference material, because you will be doing research in websites, books and so on this subject to bring the speech to life, find quotes, find anecdotes chiefly, maybe even illustration and so on. So very often you'll mix the two. And it's kind of an occasion for me to reflect on my own journey so far. So far I've done about 27 speeches in Toastmasters. And here's a breakdown. Almost the majority of these speeches were on my own interest. I'm interested in history, and this has been the material for a fair few speeches, similarly for politics. I'm interested in the history of the underground, for example. That has also been a subject for one of my speeches. Myself, I've been the hero, as one could say, or the main subject or 6 of my speeches, followed by what I call other speech, humorous speech, occasion-specific speech, and say you have, for example, if you're the president of the Toastmaster Club and you want to set up your plan for the club as president, you could do a 6 to 7 minute speech out of that. One of these other speeches was one of these, and finally my career and my work, 3 of these speeches. And most of the time, in all of these speeches I've done, I mixed in my own personal experience with a bit of research, and sometimes actually a lot of research. One of the speeches I did, it was on a book I read recently, so weaving in the book into a speech was the main topic. The key lessons I've learned so far in 2 years of doing a lot of speeches is you can pretty much speak about whatever you want in Toastmasters. There are no taboo subjects. Some people say politics and religion are subject to avoid. I disagree. As long as you speak about them correctly and you don't say something that's too extreme, they are perfectly acceptable. It's not it's the message that you're saying that matters, not necessarily anything. It's how you say it that matters. People are very curious. We're all naturally curious as human beings. That's one of the things that distinguishes some animals after all. Honestness. For example, I go back to my speech on London Underground. We all use the tube every single day here in London. So people are always a little bit curious to know about, oh, that's when it was built. Oh, that's the difficulty they faced. Oh, how much passengers it carried every year. All these little factories that people are interested in learning. And the big thing is, the CC manual is very open. You can talk about choosing a subject for most of the CC manual speech is usually pretty easy. Harness this to your advantage. When you're doing more advanced speech, like speeches by management, technical presentation, or even sometimes speaking to inform, the openness is not always there because the objectives are very specific and only certain subjects can fit the objective. But while you're only at the first step of your journey on the CC manual, use it to your advantage and speak about whatever you want. Trust your instinct and speak about what you love. Sometimes inspiration for speeches come quite suddenly, or you receive something that will say, ah, that could make a great speech someday. Write it down. One day I was on the tube and just a drunk lady started to fell over a man that was not their partner and that was sitting down. A little bit of an interesting scene ensued, and I'm like, this could be a great topic for your speech. Wrote it down. I haven't made a speech out of it yet, but the idea is there in my file ready to use. Keep a file, keep maybe a little notebook, whatever you find works best for you, and write it down. And sometimes the spur of the moment can work wonder, which goes again to trusting your instinct. If you're saying, ah, this what I've just read could make a great subject for a speech, if you have the time, if you have the ability to do so, start scribbling down, start writing. It might just be an outline, but that's the start of something. Now, in terms of more specific on topic selection, a big one is the audience. This is especially crucial when speaking outside of Toastmasters, which I'm sure everyone in this room wants to do at some point in their life. How many people are there in the audience? If there are 50 people or 50,000 people as your audience, the type of speech you'll say will differ slightly. Because the more people there are in the audience, the more you have to make sure that everyone understands. And the more people there are, the more of a challenge it becomes. So keep it simple. What's the age range? If I make a speech to a group in their 20s or 30s or in their 50s or 60s, I don't think I could make a speech about Facebook, LinkedIn and the wonders of online dating to people in their 50s, 60s or 80s. They just wouldn't have a clue, they wouldn't understand. But people in their 20s or 30s, they could relate to it. Bear this in mind. Toastmasters Club usually have a pretty diverse audience in terms of age, but in some clubs the spread is not always that wide. Bear this in mind. Are they familiar with the subject? If the audience isn't familiar with the subject at all, kiss. Keep it simple, stupid, as they say. Dumb it down. It might seem like, I don't really want to do that, but if people can't latch on what you've said, there's no point. I've been guilty in many speeches about history I've heard of saying, oh, people understand that France and Britain used to be at war in the 18th century, that there was the other. Everyone knows this, it's common sense. No, it's not common sense. There are some people in this country who don't know Winston Churchill was Prime Minister in World War II. What I'm saying is a bit silly, but do not assume that your audience knows everything. Sometimes you may have to say things that you think are common sense, but are not common sense for others. Interest, education, career maybe. If you're doing a speech, for example, to the Royal Society of Chemistry, if you're a chemist, it's going to be a different audience to the Royal Society of Arts. If you want to speak outside of Toastmaster, your audience matters. I have done that mistake of making a speech that was not really tailored to the audience, when in fact the judges or the particular competition and the message should, so to speak. Moving on. Your own abilities. We're all learning. as speakers and communicators, I myself am still very much learning, and speeches, presentations like that, I'm really looking forward to get all the feedbacks in from you guys, because I'm sure I learned something I didn't know before coming to this room today. But be aware of your own abilities and your own enthusiasm into a subject. If you just have a mild interest in something, like I just have a mild interest in cooking, I find it fun. Okay, you could potentially make a speech about cooking, but are you passionate enough? Are you sufficiently passionate about the topic that when you stand here on the stage, the audience will just latch onto everything you say and say, God, she or he knows his stuff, and I want to get cooking as well. If you're not enthusiastic about a topic, there's no need to speak about it. I, for example, only have a passing interest in modern art. Should I do a speech on modern art? I did when it was a humorous speech to ridicule it, or a speech to explain it. I don't think I could. Your knowledge ties into that, your knowledge base. The more you know about the subject, the easier it is to speak on a subject. If you just sometimes know just the basics on the subject, that's actually a good thing, because you can only speak about the basics. But the more you know about the subject, the easier it is to speak on one subject. Are you an authority on the subject? Now, most of us are probably not an authority into something yet. We might very well be in the future. If speaking outside of Toastmasters, what are your credentials? You will have to have some kind of credential on the subject. Have you worked in this field? Have you researched this field? Do you have a diploma in this field? Do you maybe have a qualification in this field? This matters. And in Toastmaster, you can use it to a degree. You can use it to a degree as well. For example, you've had a degree in something and talk about the subject of this degree. That makes you an authority in the eyes of the audience. You just have to make sure that you balance it against the right audience. But what I would say is the more you know about the subject, the more you will appear like an authority to the audience. Especially if there's a Q&A session which you can handle well. Then you'll say, he or she knows that stuff. The more knowledge you have about a subject, the easier it is to speak on it. I know I'm parroting myself here, I've said that many times, but please, this is a crucial bit, and this is a very, very important bit. It can make things harder a little bit sometimes, because you know so much that you don't know what to select, which moves on quite nicely to being specific. Some subjects are very, very big. I could go back to the speech that Tia has done about refugees. This is a massive subject, because it's happening all over the globe, it's very complex, economics, sociology, everything intersects with it. But Tia made it quite specific in simply talking about the human suffering that these people are experiencing, and that drive them to leave their countries in search of a better life. That's what we talk about doing specific. Is the topic specific enough for the time allocated? I could go back to the speech I done on the London Underground. You could speak for hours about the London Underground, or the train works, or the signal works, the electricity supply. I only had 7 minutes. What I did, just the history, and even that and heavily truncated history, and then a little factoid to say which one that's busy. But that worked. That was just the right amount of content for the time. Remember, in 7 minutes, you can only say just 2 pages of A4 paper at the most. A minute is 100 to 120 words, as I like to say. The sub-point, do everything fits together nicely in the speech. It goes back with weaving, as I like to call it, or the structure. If the speech isn't weaved properly, if the structure of the speech isn't clear, as we say in French, there's a nice term, le fil conducteur, which means the common thread running through it. If the common thread running through the speech isn't clear, the audience is just not going to get it. It might seem easier said than done, but sometimes you have to rewrite your speech or get your speech commented on by other people, and if they can't see it themselves, you may have to rewrite. So this is my next point. Never be afraid to cut something out of the speech you've written. This is a very difficult one because we're attached to what we write. Say, oh, the vocabulary is great, there's great modifying language and so on, it's just great. But if it's too long, if it's not relevant, cut it out. Just cut it out. It's difficult to do. I've myself, when practicing speech, I've had to make that decision before, but just do it. Because if it's too long, it's not working. 1 minute equals 100 to 120 words. A typical CC speech is therefore 800, 900 words maximum. 900 words is a little bit too much. Why do I say this number as well? It's the pace. Because if your speaking pace is more than 100 to 20 words a minute, you're speaking too fast and people cannot understand what you say. This is crucial. Because the slower you speak, the more you're seen as an authority on the subject, apparently. And I'll kind of summarize this by this diagram that I've shamelessly nicked from a website on 6 Minute Speaking by Andrew Logan and modified slightly. A great speech topic is at the intersection of what you know, what you love, and the audience and occasion. You might know a lot about cooking and love doing cooking, but if your audience isn't interested in it, that's not going to work. Similarly, you may have an audience that's interested in cooking, and you might know a bit about cooking, but you don't love it. What's going to happen is, thank you, what's going to happen is you're not going to be seen on authority, and it's just going to fall flat. I'm conscious I'm running over time. This is a very big topic, and I'm sure we can all go on for hours. I hope this was useful. I would love to take any questions, but I'm afraid I simply don't have the time, so I'll leave it on that note. And I'm just answering.